Welcome back to Maths with Mrs. J. We're going to start a series of videos about probability. I really like the topic of probability for a number of reasons. One is it's just really cool and interesting, but the second reason is that it tends to come naturally to quite a lot of people. It's very logical, it makes a lot of sense, and a lot of people already know more than they realise about calculating probabilities. First thing we need to think about is, what are we talking about when we're talking about probability? What we're talking about is the likelihood or chance of something happening. Now, obviously, everything ranges between being absolutely impossible and absolutely certain. Now, in everyday life, there are very few things that are absolutely impossible or absolutely certain. Some people could even argue the fact that the sun will rise tomorrow morning is not certain. You know, the world could end or something dramatic like that. I'm not going to get that philosophical on you, but in general, everyday life situations are much more likely to be sort of towards that end or towards that end rather than actually at those ends. If something is impossible, it has a probability of 0. If something is certain, it has a probability of 1. In between, we either use fractions or decimals. We don't tend to use percentages in our mathematics. Sometimes we'll talk about something being 50-50, but that's more like common speak than maths speak. If we do say something's 50-50, most of us have the idea that that means that it's about half as likely to happen both ways. One example of that would be tossing a coin. Now, you'll have to excuse my drawings here. I'm a maths teacher, not an art teacher, but it'll give you a fair idea. I'll hold up, this is a coin, an Australian 20-cent coin. If you toss a coin, most people know that obviously either it's going to land heads up or tails up. We could write that, the sample space, S, and we use our curly brackets. The various options are a head or a tail. So there are two possible things that can happen. I guess in theory it could land on its side, but let's not go there, all right? So technically speaking, the probability that it's going to be a head will be a half, because one side is a head and there are two possible outcomes. With a die, now, first thing I want to just stress with you, die is singular, dice is plural. So one of these little dudes is a die. If I have more than one, I have dice, all right? Now, a normal die has 6 faces, all right? And it will be labelled 1 up to 6. You can occasionally get more interesting dice. They might have 10 faces or even 20 faces. With a normal regular die, the sample space or the options that you could get for the number up the top are obviously a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. If you're rolling 2 dice and adding up the totals, then obviously there are a lot more options there, and we will be talking about that in future videos. For now, we're just talking about doing one thing, so one toss of a coin or one roll of a die. Now, cards. A lot of people these days are not that familiar with packs of cards. You might see them on things like Australia's Got Talent, where someone will come out with a pack of cards to do a magic trick, all right? A lot of people don't have cards at their house. They're not used to what's in a pack of cards. A lot of probability questions are still about packs of cards, however. So let's just think about those for a minute. This is something that you need to familiarise yourself with. In a pack of cards, there are 4 suits: hearts, diamonds, spades, and clubs. Now, the hearts and diamonds are red, the spades and clubs are black. So there are 13 of each of those, which gives you a total of 52 cards. We don't count the jokers. Now, in each suit, you can have an ace, a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, jack, queen, or king. So now, technically, the outcomes are all of those, but for each of the 4 suits. I'm not going to write 52 things down now. So just be aware of that. There are 13 cards in each suit. So each of these, so for example, a 4, there will be 4 4s in your pack of cards. There will be the 4 of hearts, the 4 of diamonds, the 4 of spades, the 4 of clubs. There will be 4 jacks, all right? 2 of those jacks will be red and 2 of them will be black, all right? So just start thinking about that, ready for some of our questions. Another very common scenario is either the balls in a bag, marbles in a bag, different coloured lollies in a bag, any sort of scenario like that, where you've got a certain number of each colour of something. It could be even, you know, coins of some sort or counters of some sort that are mixed up in a bag, and somebody's reaching in and picking one out and working out the probability that it's going to be a certain colour. This is also a very, very common scenario. Sometimes with these sorts of questions, we go on to talk about, okay, well, I've taken one out and noted the colour and I've put it back in, and then I've taken another one out. What's the probability that they were both the same colour, or that sort of thing. Other examples that come up are things like if you're having a family and talking about the number of boys or girls, all of those sorts of regular things that we talk about. So just to go back to the start again, probability is talking about likelihood or chance. Obviously, everything is either between impossible and certain. In everyday life, very few things are at those ends. In probability senses, you could say that for a die, the probability, and we write it like this, the probability of getting a 7 on one die is 0, because your die only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're not going to get a 7. It's impossible. All right? That sort of thing. Certain things, probability 1, 50-50, probability 1/2. The probability that if you roll a die, you get an even number will be, well, how many of these sides are even? We've got a 2, a 4, and a 6, so 3 out of the 6, which is 1/2. In general, let's just write a little rule here. The probability of an event is the number of ways, what we call favourable outcomes. This is where you can see that I'm an Aussie because I put a U in favourable, over the total number of outcomes. That hashtag, by the way, means number. So it's the number of ways of getting what you're talking about divided by the total number of things that could possibly happen. And we're going to delve into that in a lot more detail in future videos.